Reddit. Love it or hate it, it has many uses beyond simply being a discussion board. There are many communities on the site that aim to help users locate or identify media, physical items, or even words or phrases that have slipped their minds or are so obscure that a simple Google search won't suffice. While in the majority of cases, users who post to these communities have their questions answered, sometimes what they're looking for is so obscure or their recollection is so vague that even the collective brainpower of thousands of users can't crack the case. These unresolved posts often lie dormant for months or even years and present some of the most intriguing mysteries the internet has to offer. Today, we'll be diving into the depths of these Reddit communities and swimming the waters of uncertainty found within. User PowerfulCan7536 posted on the r/tipofmytongue forum asking users to help them identify a song from the 1990s with the following description. I'm looking for a song to which I only have the ending on a tape. On my recording, we hardly hear the singer, but I think it looks like the Divine Comedy, Morrissey, or some English singer/band from the end of the 1990s with violins. They included a recording of the song in their post, which I'll play for you now. The OP suggested that the vocalist of the song is reminiscent of Morrissey from The Smiths, or Neil Hannon from The Divine Comedy. Both solid suggestions when comparing the vocals heard in the recording to their styles. In the comments, they go on to clarify that the tape featuring this recording is made of cut-up tunes from the radio, implying that what came before or after the snippet is of no relevance to the song in question. Unfortunately, the recording quality is quite low and likely suffers from a combination of radio static and tape degradation. Even though the post received only a few upvotes, there were quite a few suggestions from other users as to the identity of the music. Somebody suggested that the song was some sort of cover of Hushabye Mountain, a song written by the Sherman Brothers for the 1968 film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. While this wasn't the case, the chord progression heard in the snippet does bear a striking resemblance to the chords used in the Sherman Brothers composition. So much so that I went and listened to Tony Bennett's version of the song just to make sure. Another user suggested that the song could be a Blur album track or something from David Bowie around the time of his album Heathen. Powerful Can assured the other user that the recording was made prior to the year 2000, which rules out that particular Bowie project. Further suggestions were that the song was a cover of Time in a Bottle by Jim Croce, which also features a similar chord progression to the song in question, a track by 90s rock band Suede, a late work by British band The Moody Blues, or a distorted version of Guess I'll Forget You by American rock group The Black Heart Procession. None of these answers were correct, leaving the OP with no resolution to their search. They went on to post the same question on the Name That Song subreddit, but unfortunately, nobody there was able to help either, with the only reply to the post suggesting a Morrissey song, which again was not the track they were looking for. The haunting strings and overall gloomy atmosphere of the track is quite captivating, definitely fitting with that sort of 80s, 90s sad boy Morrissey vibe. Hopefully, somebody knows the origin of this song and can put this mystery to rest for Powerful Can 7536. Maybe this song is actually quite well known, but nobody on the subreddits were familiar with the artist. I must admit that the 1990s is not my strongest period of musical knowledge. Let's hope this doesn't become another lost wave and can be solved relatively easily. User EssenceBase3085 posted on the Help Me Find subreddit asking for assistance in identifying a cartoon they had seen as a child, stating, "I remember when I was young, there was this clip of a cartoon set in some sort of creepy looking place where there was this green-skinned girl in a patched-up jacket, wearing a medallion and a giant black monster in the shape of a mushroom cloud that had a skull for a face." They attached their own illustration drawn from their memory of the cartoon, which I must say is very well done. Looking back through their post history, the OP is very dedicated to finding this animation and has posted multiple times to different subreddits, asking for help from other Redditors. There were a lot of suggestions for this one, so I'm only going to go over the most popular and or promising leads brought up. Otherwise, we'd be here all night. This post caught my attention as it did trigger some vague memory in the back of my mind from my childhood, as it seems to have done with many others in the comments. Additional context was established by EssenceBase, stating that it was seen around 2008 to 2010 while living in Arkansas, USA. There was some sort of melancholic soundtrack. It was 2D hand-drawn animation, and it was most likely a commercial for an animated special. The channels they had access to at the time were Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and PBS Kids. At first, people were offering suggestions like Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, Vendetta from Nicktoons series Making Fiends, and even Salad Fingers, begging the question, can there be a post on one of these subreddits about animation without someone suggesting Salad Fingers? I think that the more likely answers were explored once OP had clarified the fact it was likely a commercial or interstitial. Was it perhaps a one-off Halloween promo for PBS Kids, featuring the green channel mascot character Dot? Or a one-off bumper for Cartoon Network, similar to the Nicktoons zombified bumpers, which were recently discovered by the Lost Media community? User BrodyQuester came back to the OP after having spent a full day researching leads and presented them with some great theories, which I'll condense here for you. The girl and the monster were actually from unrelated pieces of media and were put together in this bumper to promote an event or block on Cartoon Network. This put me in mind of the Ed y Eduardo bumpers, which I believe are only partially found, featuring characters from Ed, and Eddie, with Eduardo from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Other theories were that the character was actually well known and was disguising themselves as a zombie, or that OP had seen a foreign pilot for a show which was only briefly shown on US television, or that it was actually an obscure short film produced in Europe. Channels like Nickelodeon were known to show short films at this time. If I were to guess, I think it's likely that the OP saw a one-off Halloween bumper or even an advertisement which has become lost to time or is so obscure that we don't have the right keywords to even begin looking for it. As I said, it does ring a bell in the back of my mind, so let's hope OP can have their mystery resolved. A year ago, on the Tip of My Tongue subreddit, user Abra Johannes Osvaldo wrote, "Around 1992, I watched a movie on TV in England. It was a live-action, feature-length film, probably American, and I probably saw it on Channel 4 on a Sunday afternoon. It was about a little blonde girl, meant to resemble Shirley Temple, navigating a malevolent dream world. Her naive and carefree nature often shielded her from realizing the imminent danger she was in. There was a character who was her protector, a thin, middle-aged black man with a round head and a mustache. He had a jazzman aesthetic and wore a white zoot suit. I think there were other protector characters too, but I can't remember them. Though the movie was probably made in the 1980s, it had an Art Deco 1920s aesthetic. There were sepia shots of skyscrapers that resembled the Chrysler Building, and sets decorated with billowing white fabric. The movie had a blend of black and white and colour sequences. I think one film stock was meant to represent reality, while the other represented dreams, but I can't remember which was which. They may have also spliced in clips from old silent films, as much like the video for Radio Gaga by Queen. I vividly remember a scene where the jazzman tries to convince the little girl to wake up, or else she'll be consumed by her dream. But he does so in a calm and friendly way, so that she doesn't get scared. He looks directly into the camera, smiling, and says something like, "You gotta wake up now, Angel. Go ahead and wake up now. Please wake up." But each time he said it, he got a little more scared that she wouldn't wake up. This post attracted the attention of quite a few Redditors who offered a range of explanations as to what the OP had watched 30 years prior. Suggestions made ranged from the work of Jan Svankmajer to animated film Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland, to horror film Moon Garden, although none of these were the correct answer. A common theme that came up frequently was that it was an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, with one user suggesting Svankmajer's 1988 version and another the CBS adaptation from 1985, which featured Sammy Davis Jr. It seems that the themes discussed within OP's description do tend to align with many of the themes of Lewis Carroll's novel and the subsequent film and TV adaptations. Scrolling down through the comments, we can see that OP has asked about this film before, on the subreddit. The previous post that the OP had made to the Tip of My Tongue forum did include a few extra details that were left out of this post, mainly that the film could have been broadcast on BBC Two instead of Channel 4, and that the editing style was reminiscent of the Czech film Daisies from 1966. In the comments on this post, somebody asks whether they could have seen a short film, but OP clarifies that it was on long enough for their mum to have left near the start of the film and returned an hour later. They also originally speculated that the film could be as old as the 1970s, which would open up the scope of possible answers. In the post, the OP does speculate that the child actress she saw was made to look like Shirley Temple, so the Shirley Temple movie, Bluebird, from 1940, was brought up in the comments, as it does share the common theme of children who travel into a dream world. The movie also uses two different film stocks to differentiate between dreams and reality. OP was adamant that what they had seen was not a Shirley Temple film, although user Mystery Radish did raise the excellent point that Shirley Temple starred in films alongside and was friends with Bill Bojangles Robinson, a prolific African-American tap dancer, actor, and singer. Perhaps the film that OP saw was inspired by their friendship and collaborations. I think this is perhaps the best theory currently out there about this mysterious film. A movie that drew inspiration from Temple and Robinson's friendship, although it's difficult to find anything along those lines when searching the web. Another very interesting point is that there was a remake of The Bluebird in 1976, which featured Cicely Tyson as Tylette the cat. Perhaps OP mistook the cat costume for a zoot suit. Having skimmed through the film on YouTube, there unfortunately doesn't seem to be any sort of cityscape featured, or Art Deco elements to the set design. Circling back to the Alice theory, I did take the time to look at other adaptations of Alice in Wonderland that were released before 1992. But unfortunately, again, there's nothing that I can see that fits the bill. Definitely a puzzling mystery that will hopefully be put to bed eventually. 9 months ago, a post was made to the Help Me Find subreddit where user Romantic Angarali asked for help identifying a character from a childhood sweater. The post simply read, "Couldn't find anything with reverse picture search," and included this photograph. The image shows an illustration of a young woman holding what appears to be a smoking weapon in one hand and a smouldering cigarette or enhanced cigarette in the other hand. The OP went on to provide details that the sweater was from 15 to 18 years ago and they were located in Germany. An unidentifiable figure on a piece of fabric from the mid-2000s, retailed in Central Europe. This is starting to sound familiar. The post received 1.5k upvotes and has since been archived. However, the top comment suggests that the character is from the US brand JNCO, manufacturers of baggy jeans which were popular in the 1990s. It was, however, pointed out that the character doesn't appear to be wearing that style of jeans, which pretty much rules out the possibility. A commenter also from Germany came forward with a similar piece of clothing in response, one of their old pyjama shirts, which features a similarly stylized young woman holding a weapon, sparking speculation that the characters could belong to the brand Lil Homies, although there seems to be little evidence of there being any clothes produced featuring this character line, which I believe was mainly figures purchased from vending machines, unless I'm just looking in the wrong places. There were many other suggestions, including the popular theory that the character was some version of Maya from video game series Borderlands. Unfortunately, I think it's just coincidental that they happen to have a similar colour palette. Other suggestions included a brand called Onyx from the early 2000s and another called Energy from the 90s. Again, there's poor documentation of these brands online, as this sort of thing is basically never archived. A comment suggesting the clothing brand Mad Bad Hardware did pique my interest as the art style is very close to OP's sweater. However, most of their designs incorporate the brand name, which would have made it obvious who produced it. I think that this comment hit the nail on the head, which was made by somebody also from the same region of Europe as the OP. I vividly remember when the kids section in H&M and other retailers had masses of these cartoon characters printed on tops. When I was growing up in the early 2000s, there really were lots of items of clothing being sold at large retailers with this exact style of character, and unfortunately, tracking this specific one down would be quite challenging, likely requiring finding and scouring original catalogues from the period, or spending hours on the Wayback Machine and hoping that this design was archived somewhere. If celebrity number 6 taught us anything though, it was that finding something this obscure is not impossible. To round off this video, I'd like to take a look at a final unsolved post from over a year ago, which is absolutely bonkers but makes for a phenomenal mystery. User Mandy Elephant asked for assistance from the Help Me Find community in locating a very distinctive car, decorated by their grandmother in the 1980s. Sometime around 1988, my grandma decorated this car with seashells from around the US. By the end, it sagged low to the ground from all the weight and was not drivable. The last thing she stuck on the front of the car was her heart pills, to which she said, "I don't need these anymore." The car was sold to a family friend with a last name that was Van or something. It was hauled cross-country to Miami, Florida, where it was displayed on top of their seafood restaurant. In 2008, my aunt knew it was still there. My family and their family lost touch over the years, but my auntie was wondering if the car was still on display in Miami, or whatever happened to it. I told her I'd try and figure it out, since she is old and doesn't know how the internet works. Any chance anyone seen my grandma's car? Users were quick to press for more details, with many becoming invested in the search due to the novelty of the concept and the tangible fact that it could be potentially located by a dedicated Floridian or Google Maps user. The user's ante was set up with a Reddit account so that they could directly answer searchers' questions, clarifying the car was actually put up on top of a pole, not simply placed on top of the restaurant, and that they weren't 100% sure that the car was sent to Miami, but were confident it was southern Florida. They went on to say that the car was a 1977 Dodge Monaco and generally came across as a very sweet person in their responses. It was reported by the OP that the car was picked up from French Road in Depew, New York, in the late spring or early summer of 1988, and that the event was covered by local newspapers and even recorded for a TV news station. Users suggested that the car might have ended up on Duval Street in Key West, as it's absolutely packed with restaurants, with one kind Redditor even going there and checking for the OP to cross it off their list of possibilities. Another theory was that the car might have ended up at Shell World in Key Largo, but again, neither of these locations was home to the vehicle. The mystery was cross-posted to other subreddits and made it to the South Florida Flashback Facebook group. This was to no avail. The OP did try to search LinkedIn for a restaurant owner in South Florida with a surname beginning Van, but found that there were simply too many results to search through. Given the amount of concrete or semi-concrete details available in this mystery, I'm surprised it wasn't solved at the time, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing this shell-laden car rediscovered. And there we have it, 5 unsolved mysteries from the depths of Reddit. Let me know if you have any insights on these obscure topics in the comments, and feel free to share any personal mysteries or things you can't quite remember in enough detail to find. I feel like everybody has something they remember from their childhood that plagues them. I personally spent years trying to remember the obscure online game Spine World, and the feeling of accomplishment when I tracked down what I had played as a child was amazing. If you've enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like to help out the channel, and if you're feeling extra generous, you could hit the subscribe button. I know I have enjoyed researching these topics and creating this video.